Yield to the chair.
Thank you.
Gentleman's
Thank
time's
you, sir.
expired. Chair recognizes Mr. Issa.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You know, getting the troops home for Christmas makes this particularly appropriate. In the back there's two Gold Star families.
Right.
Christy Shamblin and Elisa and Herman Lopez. Their loved ones didn't get home for Christmas.
Yes.
They didn't get home for Christmas because of a hasty withdrawal, because of a decision to withdraw from the military base and keep, as it turned out, a completely non-defendable, or at least not defended, embassy. So I want to go through a little bit of a timeline because you have two administrations, and to a great extent were there for all of them. When Mike Pompeo left office, one of the agreements was a 50-50 sharing coming out of that negotiation between the Taliban and the lawfully elected government. Isn't that true?
The percentages were not mentioned, but it was to be negotiations for a new government between the Taliban.
With shared authority.
Shared government, yes.
Okay, so the shared authority, it's fair to say, started off at least tangentially as 50-50. And then as the Taliban continued to aggressively take bigger parts of the country, because we had withdrawn and to be honest, the Afghan government was not able to hold them back in that summer offensive. As I understand it, it went to 60-40 in favor of the Taliban, 70-30, and then ultimately 100-0 as they headed toward Kabul. Is that correct?
I don't know about the percentages. There was nothing formally.
Well, was the Taliban demanding more authority as they took more land?
Oh, no doubt that as the balance shifted and the requirement and what one heard was that the increase. But I have to say again that on the 15th of August, they made a proposal for a shared government.
Okay, well, I mean, you've previously testified to the 50-50, 60-40, and 70-30. These are your own prior statements. So I just want to, we'll give it to you from
yes, please,
the transcribed interview.
That they have asked, they've changed their position, but I don't recall
okay, well, let's just try to be
numbers.
Let's try to be fair with the facts as they occur.
Sure, absolutely.
There was a negotiation for an end to hostilities and a shared government power, in many ways similar to other ends of that. Yeah. We agreed to leave because they agreed not to fight. During perhaps the Trump administration, but certainly during the Biden administration, the Taliban was aggressively fighting. They were, in fact, taking territory. They were violating the spirit of the ceasefire, the spirit of the agreement, and yet we continued our withdrawal as though they were not, in fact, taking by force control of the country. Isn't that correct?
The agreement was, Congressman, for them not to attack withdrawing forces. The agreement was for us, if they attack the Afghans, to come to the defense of the Afghan forces.
But we didn't come to that. No, but let's be clear. What you're saying is we agreed that we wouldn't get killed as we withdrew, right. But we left the caveat that we would not allow the Taliban to defeat the Afghan military, and we had the right to come to their defense.
Right, and we did.
Well, we didn't do it sufficient to stop them, did we?
Well, at the end, you're right, but what surprised us was the poor performance of the Afghans, particularly post-President Biden's announcement and in the summer. The April announcement in the summer that the balance began to shift significantly.
So I just want to ask a simple question.
Yes, sir.
And it's a final question, I believe. When conditions changed and our ability to stop the Taliban by taking the country by force and putting children, particularly girls, back into essentially slavery, when that began to change, President Biden did not react by sending troops back in or anything else, and it's your testimony he did so because sending troops back in other words, enforcing keeping their agreement, would have potentially cost American lives, and he wasn't willing to do so. So 13 Americans died, and countless Americans and people who helped Americans became trapped in Afghanistan because he wouldn't send troops back in when, in fact, the Taliban was violating not just the spirit, but the facts of what they'd agreed to, which was not taking the country by force. Isn't that true?
Well, the government disintegrated. The president ran away.
Wait a second. The government disintegrated when all they had left was an encircled Kabul. The president flew out at a time.
If you go further in time.
Well, I'd like to go back to around January 20th of 2021.
Right.
On January 20th, 2021, what was in fact the government already disintegrated, or what did over the next 8 months, as they were finding themselves unable to hold the territories and negotiate, they began to disintegrating finally when they were entrapped and all that was left was an airport to leave by?
You're of course right that during the 8 months of disintegration, it increased, and finally in Kabul, what happened. But I think that the balance shifted surprisingly. Our assessment was different than what happened.
I appreciate the surprise, but Mr. Chairman, I think the testimony speaks for itself. It was during the 8 months in which the Taliban aggressively took land that they began to deteriorate a government because we did not re-engage with troops sufficient. And maybe that was a good decision, but I don't think it was. I think it was the decision that made inevitable the people of Afghanistan living in slavery and 13 Americans losing their lives. With that, Mr. Chairman, I yield.